September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and all month long we are bringing you stories of resilience, the latest developments in treatment and hope. I recently spoke with retired Army Sergeant First Class Dan Jarvis, who founded the organization 220, which helps our veterans, doctors, nurses, and first responders take back their life from depression and PTSD. Your story is so incredible, and I know you are helping so many people. But let's start first with your time overseas in Afghanistan. What can you tell me about that time?
I was deployed to Afghanistan in 2011, 2012. I was with the a Stryker brigade out of Fort Wainwright, Alaska, infantry squad leader. It wasn't the best of deployments. Half my men were medevaced out of country, not to return. One of the soldiers in our platoon was killed that I felt extremely responsible for. I stepped on a pressure plate, detonated an IED, which gave me a pretty significant TBI that I kind of had to deal with the lingering effects with throughout the rest of the deployment. Didn't get a whole lot of sleep. I mean, my brain was constantly going. We did partnerships with the Afghan National Army. We also did partnerships with the Afghan National People. We did a lot of humanitarian assistance in some of the communities in Afghanistan. So it's kind of hard to really look back and see what's going on right now, knowing that the men, women, and children in the areas that we served in are going to be significantly impacted by what's going on with the Taliban. So it's kind of a heartbreaker, and we're getting a lot of requests for help from veterans that are really, really struggling with what they're watching unfold before their very eyes. So yeah, it's been a difficult, couple of weeks.
I can't imagine. I mean, as a civilian, knowing the sacrifices you made, but for those of you that were there, that helped them, that fought in this war, has just, as you mentioned, got to be so heartbreaking. What are you seeing from veterans? How is this impacting? Is this triggering anything for them?
The way the brain, a lot of us, we compartmentalize and we'll put things away in places that we don't want to address them. It may still manifest with triggers and, nightmares and occasional, intrusive thoughts. But now that this is front and center to the whole world, it's bringing all of those emotions back up. And my worry is that it's going to cause somebody to, the body produces emotions in waves of 90 seconds. And it's in those 90 seconds that they pull the trigger. And that's my big fear, is they're going to have a whole lot more of those 90-second waves and start to lose kind of hope and have their body chemistry affected by it. We're just out here as a peer support organization, just trying to connect with the women and men who've served and, kind of partner them up with peer coaches and, do some things that'll help disconnect those neurological connections between those emotions and what they witnessed and what they saw, or maybe what they're experiencing right now.
Yeah, you mentioned your TBI, and you didn't really feel like the treatment that the VA offered was helping you. So how did you heal and overcome from PTSD from your injury?
I went into looking into alternative treatments, and I had my paradigm change when I went through a process it was in September of 2018. And I'm like, holy cow, why is this not everywhere? And so we, as an organization, started looking into that type of treatment. And these processes have actually been around for over 40 years. It was developed in the early 1980s. And it was in the world of what they call neuro-linguistic programming, which was Dr. John Grinder and Dr. Richard Bandler. Many people might know, like Tony Robbins. He's been very successful in that world, where you can make rapid transformations. And then what we did is we modeled that visual kinesthetic disassociation process. And then we started applying it. Well, how do we do this veteran to veteran, cop to cop, firefighter to firefighter on a peer aspect? Because the rapport is the most important part. You got to get somebody to do the process. So if you have the rapport with them, they'll trust you and they'll do it. Whether they believe in the process or not is irrelevant. You get their brain to do certain guided visual imagery, and then all of a sudden you're disconnecting trauma emotions from events. So they're seeing the events, but they're no longer feeling the events. We're able to rapidly help veterans, get that disconnect between the emotion of it and the memory itself. Doesn't change the memory, that's your history. But now, instead of your story owning you, you now own your story. So I can tell my stories without any visceral negative emotions attached to it. And I'll speak before groups and they're like, how can you tell that story? And I'm like, a couple of years ago, I couldn't, I'd have been a basket case. But when you disconnect those emotions, it can literally reset you and get you back to a normal homeostasis and healthy again. And then once your sleep patterns restore, that changes everything. Then the depression goes away, your cortisol levels go back to normal, you'll come out of adrenal fatigue, and you'll get back to being the person that you're actually meant to be.
Now, 22-0 has a documentary coming out this Saturday, marking the 20th anniversary of 9/11. It follows the 5 first responders who were at Ground Zero 20 years ago and their path to recovery from PTSD thanks to the help of 22-0. It's streaming free for anyone to watch. For more information, go to 220.org. And we want you to remember that if you or someone you know is having suicidal thoughts, there is help. You can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. That number is right there on your screen, and the center is open 24/7, 365 days a year.